My name is Margaret Sullivan. Everyone calls me Maggie. At 67, I believed I had already survived every kind of hard a woman can face. Then one ordinary Thursday afternoon, I walked into the credit union for a simple $300 eye surgery deposit, and the loan officer looked up from her screen, glanced at the people behind me, and whispered 3 words that made the floor tilt under my feet. "Maggie, sit down." Those 3 words still echo in my bones. The account that held $178,000, my entire retirement, every cent from selling the hardware store I had run for 31 years, showed a balance of $412, and the only other name on that account was my eldest son's. If you have ever trusted your own child with everything you built and felt the ground disappear, stay with me. Hit subscribe right now and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what is cooking in your kitchen. I read every single one. That morning started like most mornings since my husband Carl died 18 months earlier. The house was too quiet. The coffee came out too strong because I still could not measure it without him watching over my shoulder. My younger son Mitch arrived at 7:15 the way he always did on his way to the lumber yard. He let himself in, set a grocery bag on the counter, and lined up my pill bottles on the windowsill exactly as he had done every week since my hip surgery. "Morning, Mom. Heart pills first or the blood thinner?" He laughed that easy, boyish laugh, and for one fragile second the kitchen almost felt normal again. Mitch is 44, built like a fence post, hands that have never known an office desk. He works hard, lives simple, and still drives a truck with 190,000 miles on it because a truck that runs does not need replacing. For 3 years, he has been the one who shows up, fixing porch steps, driving me to Cleveland for appointments, sitting in hospital waiting rooms at 2 in the morning eating vending machine peanuts. He has never asked for a dime and never made me feel like a burden. My other son, Dale, lives 3 states away in a gated community outside Charlotte. He sells commercial real estate, drives something German and low to the ground, and has a wife named Vanessa who redecorates her kitchen every time a magazine tells her to. Dale calls on holidays, and sometimes not even then. When he does call, the conversation is full of words like synergy and market that make me feel like a stranger listening to a stranger's life. "Insurance needs the surgery deposit by Tuesday," Mitch said that morning. "300 and change. I can swing by the credit union after my shift and save you the trip." "No," I answered sharper than I meant to. "I can still manage my own errands, son." He gave me that quiet look Carl used to give when he knew I was being stubborn for no reason, then let it go. "Okay, Mom. Bring your good glasses. Sun's bright today." I grabbed the checkbook that had sat unused since the funeral and drove myself to the same Fairview branch I had used since before Mitch was born. I had no idea the life I thought I still owned was already gone. The branch was quiet, just me, a young father trying to keep his toddler from licking the velvet rope, and Sandra Tillman behind the loan desk. I had known Sandra 20 years. She had financed my truck, my home equity loan, the line of credit that kept the hardware store alive during the recession. "Afternoon, Maggie. What can I get you?" $350 out, maybe $400 to be safe. Surgery deposit. She pulled up the account and I watched her face change the way weather rolls in over an open field, slow at first, then all at once. She typed, stopped, typed again, leaning closer as if the numbers might rearrange themselves if she stared hard enough. "Maggie," she said, voice dropped so low the woman behind me could not hear. "I need you to sit down." I actually laughed. "Sandra, it's me. What's going on?" "Your balance is sitting at $412. The words did not land right, as if she had spoken a language I used to know and had forgotten. "That can't be right. There should be close to $180,000 in there." She came around the desk, pulled a chair over, and I gripped the counter instead because some part of me believed if I let go I would fall. "There's a mistake," I said. "Has to be." But she did not say there was a mistake. She printed 4 warm pages and laid them in front of me. Rows of transfers, 2,000, 5,000, 15,000 in one shot last February, spread across 5 months. And next to every single one the same name, Dale R. Sullivan. My son. My boy who sold buildings to men in suits and drove something German. Sandra watched me the way you watch a woman you are afraid might collapse. Then she asked the question that followed me into every sleepless night afterward. "Do you recognize these transfers, Maggie?" Dale is 51, sharp the way a new knife is sharp, the kind of sharp that looks clean until you are the one bleeding. He left Millfield at 22 for college and never really came back in any way that counted. Big house. Show truck that never hauled a thing. A wife who redecorates rooms no one sits in. At Thanksgiving, he would arrive 2 hours late, eat fast, take a photo with me for Facebook with some caption about how grateful he was for his old mom, then check his watch like the room was on fire. That was how the family had always measured my 2 boys. Dale, the success story. Mitch, the one who never left town and never amounted to much. It used to eat at me, that talk, because it was Mitch who showed up. Mitch who sat with his father those last weeks holding the basin while Dale texted that he was swamped at the office and would try to make it for Christmas. 2 years earlier, not long after my hip surgery, Dale had sat at my kitchen table and told me it only made sense for him to go on the account. "Somebody with a head for finance needs to be able to step in if you can't, Mom. The store sale money, your retirement. You don't want to burden Mitch with all that paperwork. He's got enough on his plate." And God help me, I felt grateful. Everybody said Dale had a head for money. I let him handle the closing on the hardware store. I let him set up the account. I let him pat my hand the way you calm a nervous animal and say, "You let Mitch worry about your health, Mom. Leave the money to me. It's complicated." Standing in that credit union with those 4 warm pages in my hands, I remembered a message from Carl's cousin Earl, our family lawyer for 30 years, left on my machine in the spring. "Maggie, give me a call when you get a chance. It's about the account paperwork." I had thought it was nothing. Standing there, I started to understand I had been a fool. I drove home with the printouts on the passenger seat, glancing at them at every red light as if the numbers might soften if I looked sideways. They did not. At the kitchen table, I did arithmetic I never imagined doing at 67. That money was not extra. It was the surgery, the blood pressure medicine that cost more than my first car, the property taxes, the thin cushion that let me stay in the house Carl and I had raised both boys in. Without it, I knew exactly where I would land. A state-run facility 40 minutes past the interstate, the kind with a waiting list, shared rooms, and aides who call you Han, because they have 6 other rooms to reach before lunch. I thought about Carl and what he would have said if he had seen what his own sons had done. My hands shook when I called Dale. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail again. I texted the way Mitch had taught me, one slow finger at a time, call me about the account, urgent, nothing for an hour. Then the phone buzzed, but it was not Dale. It was Vanessa. "Maggie, sweetheart, I heard there's been some confusion with your accounts. Dale's worried sick about you and Mitch. Let us know if there's anything we can do. Zoe." I read it 3 times. Confusion, worried about you and Mitch. I set the phone face down and stared at the blue cornflower wallpaper Carl had chosen the year before he got sick, the paper I had never had the heart to change. The question was no longer only where the money had gone. The question was what story my son had been telling, and why my younger boy's name was already being dragged into it. That night after Mitch went home, I dug through Carl's old roll-top desk, the one that still held every receipt and birthday card since 1987. In the bottom drawer, under tax forms and a photograph of the 2 of us young and squinting on the porch of our first rented house, I found an envelope that did not look old at all. Crisp white. Return address printed clean. Harmon and Wexler, attorneys at law. Postmarked 4 months earlier. Addressed to me, unopened. Dale had taken over handling my mail 2 years ago when he set up the account, said it was easier that way, one less thing for me to track. Somehow this envelope had ended up filed in a dead man's desk instead of in my hands. The phone rang. "Mitch, Mom, you sound off." "Everything okay?" I almost told him everything right then, but something held my tongue. If Dale had done this and was already laying groundwork to point the finger at Mitch, I needed to understand the whole shape of the trap before I spoke a single word out loud. "I'm fine, son. Just went through some of your father's old things, got sentimental is all. Want me to come back over?" "No." "Get some rest. You already do enough for me." I sat a long time after I hung up with that sealed envelope in my hands and my thumb on the flap. I did not open it that night. Some part of me was not ready to learn what had been brewing under my own roof while I was not looking. Tomorrow, I told myself. I will open it tomorrow. By morning, the envelope was still sealed. I would like to say I was being patient. The truth is I was terrified. Over coffee, I made a decision. I was not going to call the whole family hollering about thieves. If I did, Dale would spin the story before I finished the sentence and make me sound like a confused old woman who had lost track of her own checkbook. He had already planted that seed with Vanessa's text. No, I would understand every dollar and every date before I said a word to anybody. I spread the printouts on the table and read them slowly, glasses pushed up my nose. Half the language meant nothing to me. Authorized signer, joint tenancy, words from a world I had handed to Dale like a fool. But I knew two people who could translate it. Sandra at the credit union and Earl, our family lawyer. One more shameful thought kept circling. Dale had spent months quietly building the story that this was Mitch's doing. Mitch was not even a signer on the account. Mitch had never once asked me for $20. More than once he had sat at this same table and said, "Mom, you ought to keep a closer eye on the money side of things," and I had waved him off. Dale's got it handled. I had said that to the son who showed up every single day and meant it as a compliment to the one who did not. "I don't want a war with my own son," I said out loud to the empty kitchen. "I just want the truth." Sitting there with cold coffee and a stack of paper that did not add up, I still believed losing the money was the worst part. I had no idea how wrong I was. Sandra met me on her lunch break, took me into a side office with a round table, and spread the statements between us. Mitch drove me and waited in the truck. I was not ready to show him yet. "I'm not supposed to give advice," she said, "but I can walk you through what's on the page." She pointed to a line near the top I had glossed over the first time. Joint owner, Dale R. Sullivan. When Dale went on this account 2 years ago, he didn't go on as a helper or power of attorney. He went on as a full joint owner, same standing as you. Your money, your retirement, the store sale, doesn't matter. Legally, once it's joint, half of it is his. He can take any amount anytime. No signature from you required. The room felt smaller. "So on paper," I said slowly, "he didn't steal anything." "On paper," she agreed. "He withdrew from an account he legally co-owns." I sat with that. A woman works 31 years behind a hardware store counter, saves every spare dollar, and her own son can empty it while the law just shrugs. I looked at the climbing numbers. 2,000, then 5, then 15. He had not grabbed it all at once. He had bled it out slow, the way you hope an old woman will not notice. "He told me he went on the account to handle the paperwork," I said. Sandra did not answer. She just looked at me, and I understood. The paperwork had never been the point. I felt the shift in town before I understood its shape. Earl Harmon's secretary, a woman I had known since she wore pigtails at church picnics, went quiet when I called to set a meeting. At the diner on Route 9, where I had eaten breakfast for 20 years, my old friend Walt caught my eye and then became very interested in his eggs. In a town the size of Millfield, a story moves like smoke under a door. It was Carl's sister Joan who finally said it plain. She called that afternoon, voice dripping concern. "Maggie, I have to ask. Dale told us about the accounts, about the money." My stomach dropped. "What exactly did Dale tell you?" "That it's mostly gone." A pause, the kind people take when they are savoring something. "And that Mitch has been taking it from you. Dale said he found out and he's just heartbroken. Didn't want to say anything, but the family deserved to know." For a second, I could not get air in. He had not just taken the money. He had built a story around it and handed the role of thief to his own brother, the one who had never taken a nickel, the one who showed up every morning, rain or shine. "Joan," I said, and I was proud of how steady it came out. "Mitch hasn't touched the cent of my money. Mitch isn't even on the account. Dale is." Silence, then the gentle tone people use when they are humoring a confused old woman. "Oh, Maggie, of course you'd take up for Mitch, you always have." That was the moment I understood the truth alone would not be enough. I was going to have to prove it in front of every soul in this town who still mattered. Dale finally called 3 days later, his name lighting the screen at 8:45. "Mom, I hear you've been working yourself into a state." "Working myself up," I said, keeping my voice level. "Dale, the account is empty, my account—" I know, it's a mess. The bank's been a nightmare." A long, theatrical sigh. Listen, you don't need to be digging through all this. It's complicated and it's not good for your blood pressure. I'm not digging, I'm reading statements. The warmth in his voice cooled several degrees. The statements, your name is on every transfer, Mom, every single one. I'm a joint owner. I have every right to manage that money. You don't understand how any of this works. You never did. Dad always handled the finances. Then help me understand. Where did $170,000 go? He did not answer directly. His voice dropped low, almost gentle, which was somehow worse than yelling. You want to be careful here, Mom. Making accusations at your age, with your memory the way it's been, people start wondering if you're still all there. Mitch included. You don't want folks thinking you can't manage on your own anymore. You know what happens next. There it was. Not my son's voice. A threat wearing my son's voice. And the thing he was threatening me with was the facility past the interstate, the shared room, the waiting list. I'm not making anything up, Dale. I'm reading numbers off a page. Get some rest, Mom. We'll talk when you're thinking straight. The line went dead. I stood in the dark kitchen with the phone still warm in my palm and felt something cold and certain settle in my chest. I had crossed a line I could not walk back. The only way through was forward. Harmon and Wexler turned out to be 2 rooms above the feed store with a coffee maker older than my truck. Earl was a thin man near my age, glasses pushed up on his forehead, handshake gentler than I remembered. Maggie Sullivan, I've been trying to reach you for months. I know. I didn't get your letter until this week. I told him everything. The drawer, the mail Dale had been handling, the empty account. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat quiet a long moment. I can't tell you everything your late husband and I discussed. Privilege survives his passing. Carl, what's Carl got to do with this? He folded his glasses slowly. Before he passed, your husband came to see me more than once. He was worried, Maggie, about Dale, about how he handled money and about him going on that account in the first place. My chest went tight. Carl never said a word to me. He didn't want to turn you against your own son on a hunch, so he did some quiet things instead to protect you while he still could. Carl. 38 years of marriage, and he had been guarding my back even at the end without me knowing. Protect me how? Earl smiled but would not say more. That part isn't mine to tell yet. It's his. He left instructions for when this day came, and it's come. Give me a few days to put it together. I left with more questions than I had walked in with, but for the first time in a week, I felt something other than pure dread. My Carl had seen this coming. Even from the grave, he was still looking out for me. I went back to the credit union and asked them to freeze the account. The branch manager was polite and immovable. It's a joint account, Mrs. Sullivan. Either owner has full access. We can't lock your son out without a court order. A court order. The word sat in my mouth like a stone. I tried the family next. Called my nephew Curtis, a level-headed man, and asked him simply to look at the statements with me. He hemmed and hawed. Aunt Maggie, I don't want to get stuck in the middle. Dale says you've been confused lately, that the whole thing's got you worked up and Mitch isn't helping. Curtis, I have the papers right here. His name is on every line. I'm sure there's an explanation. There always is. Another door closed. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming. The eye surgeon's office called about the deposit. The pharmacy needed the blood pressure prescription paid. I covered what I could from the little left in checking, watching the numbers shrink, doing the grim math of how long an old woman can hold out. 2 months, maybe 3. Worst of all, I watched it land on Mitch. People grew cool toward him at the lumber yard. Someone made a comment at the gas station. He came by one evening with red eyes and asked quietly, Mom, did Dale tell people I took your money? I could not lie. When I told him the truth, he did not get angry. He simply took my hand and said, then we clear it up together. That steadied me more than anything had in weeks. I was no longer fighting alone, but I still had no proof strong enough, and half the family had already decided the story. If you have ever handed something precious to a child you trusted and felt the ground shift under your feet, you know the cold that lived in my chest that week. If this is hitting close to home, subscribe right now so you do not miss how it ends, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up to your own family when the whole town was already against you? The call that changed everything came from Vanessa's brother-in-law, Pete, a quiet man who had married into the family decades earlier and always kept his distance from drama. In 30 years, I do not think he had called my house more than twice. "Maggie," he said, voice tight, "I probably shouldn't be calling you, but somebody needs to. Dale and Vanessa are in bad trouble. The real estate market has been brutal, and Dale made investments that went sideways. They're months behind on the house. There's talk of the bank starting foreclosure." The picture snapped into focus all at once. Dale was not a greedy man helping himself for sport. He was drowning. The big house, the German car, the Grateful Sun captions, all of it had been a man holding his breath underwater, and my account had been the last pocket of air in the room. It did not make any of it right. Nothing made it right. He had robbed his own mother and tried to pin it on his brother, but it made him human, and somehow that was worse than simple cruelty. 2 days later, the invitations went out. Dale was throwing me a party, my 70th birthday, 3 years early by actual count, but he had decided round numbers played better. At the Magnolia Room downtown, the nicest place in Millfield, the kind booked for weddings. I learned the way I learned everything now, secondhand. Joan mentioned it on the phone, assuming I already knew. "Isn't it lovely?" Dale's sparing no expense for his mother. Such a devoted son. A devoted son throwing a lavish party with money he could not account for, in front of every person in town whose opinion still mattered. I understood exactly what it was. A stage. A chance for Dale to stand in front of everyone and cement the story he had been selling. The generous son, the reliable one, while Mitch's name took the hit if the subject came up at all. That night Dale called, smooth as ever. "Mom, about the party, I think it would be best if Mitch sat this one out. He's been so worked up lately. I don't want a scene on your big day." "It's my birthday," I said. "Mitch will be sitting right next to me." "Mom, please, people are already worried about your judgment. Don't make it harder on yourself." He weaponized my age against me as plain as that. After he hung up, I sat a long time at Carl's desk, then called Earl and told him about the party, the Magnolia Room, all of it. "I'll have everything ready by then," Earl said. "And if you'll allow it, I'd like to be there myself, in the room, when the time comes." I still did not know what Carl had left behind for me. I was about to find out in front of everyone. The next morning, Mitch drove me to Earl's office. I had told him everything by then. The account, the joint ownership, Dale's threat, all of it. He had been quiet in the truck a long while, then squared his shoulders and said, "Okay, Mom. What do we do?" Earl met us at the door, brought coffee, and opened a thick folder on his desk, laying his hands flat on it as if it were something sacred. "Your husband was a careful man, Maggie, smarter than the two of us combined. Don't I know it? About 7 months before he passed, Carl came to me. He had watched Dale handle money for years, and it worried him sick. He told me, and I'm quoting him as close as I remember, 'Earl, I won't be around to mind the henhouse. Lock the door for me.'" I had to look away. I could hear Carl saying those exact words. That was him, clean through. "So we did some things," Earl said quietly. "They've been sitting in this drawer waiting in case they were ever needed. They're needed now." "What things?" He shook his head gently. "On the day, in front of everyone." Carl wanted it that way, out in the open where nobody could whisper it away after the fact. He glanced at Mitch. "He was very clear that Mitch should be standing right beside you when it happened." Mitch reached over and took my hand. "I'm not going to that party to fight my own son," I said, voice rough. "I'm going to clear Mitch's name and stop being treated like a confused old woman who can't mind her own house." Earl nodded. "Then bring your son, the one who showed up, and let your husband do the rest." The Magnolia Room glowed gold that evening. White tablecloths, a string quartet Dale had hired for show, a banner reading "Happy 70th, Mom" in silver letters that did not even have the right number. Nearly 40 people filled the room, aunts, uncles, church faces, half of Main Street dressed up and smiling. I walked in with Mitch on my arm. The room did not stop talking exactly, but it stumbled. Whispers rippled across the tables. Heads turned toward Mitch. Eyes slid away the moment they met mine. Dale crossed the floor fast, smile bright, eyes hard underneath. "Mom." He kissed my cheek, then low just for me. "I asked you to leave Mitch home." "He's my son," I said quietly. "Both of you are, I brought him." Dale straightened, scanned the room, recalculated on the spot. The public's smile snapped back. "Everyone made it. Wonderful, family is everything, isn't it? People raised glasses. The quartet played on. In the back corner, half hidden by a potted palm, sat a thin old man in a gray suit with a leather folder on his lap. Earl. He caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. Steady, Mom, Mitch murmured. Wait for it. Dale tapped a fork against his glass and stepped to the front, champagne raised. The room quieted. The whole night tilted toward whatever was coming. Thank you all for coming, 70 years. Can you believe it? My mother has given this family everything. Warm murmurs. And family means responsibility. It means caring for our parents when they can't quite care for themselves anymore, especially with finances, when judgment isn't what it used to be. He let that hang. His eyes touched me soft and sad. The loving son worried sick about his failing mother. It hasn't been easy lately. Some of you know there have been concerns about Mom's accounts, about someone close to her who hasn't acted in her best interest. I've tried to handle it quietly to protect this family, but I think it's time we were honest about who's been taking advantage of her. The whispers rose again. Nearly every head in the room turned slow and certain toward Mitch. I felt my son go rigid beside me. His hand found mine under the table and gripped hard. 40 faces. 40 people who had known both my boys their whole lives, looking at my good son like something scraped off a boot. I stood. My knees are not what they were. Mitch rose with me to steady my arm. The room went still. Mom, Dale said smoothly, sit down. This isn't the time. You're right about one thing, Dale. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Someone close to me took my money, and I think it's time this whole family knew exactly who in black and white. I nodded toward the back. Earl stood and walked forward, folder in hand. Dale's eyes locked on it and the color drained straight out of his face. Earl set the pages on the white tablecloth where everyone could see. My name is Earl Harmon. I've been this family's attorney for 30 years. With Maggie's permission, I'm going to read from her bank statements. You're welcome to pass them around after. This is ridiculous, Dale said. Mom's confused. Nobody needs. January 18th, Earl read, calm as a grocery list. Transfer out, $12,000. Recipient, Dale R. Sullivan. The room went very still. February 2nd, 18,000, Dale R. Sullivan. He turned a page. February 28th, 22,000. March 14th, 15,000. Each name landed like a stone dropped into still water. I watched the faces change, confusion, then doubt, then something colder. Joan's hand covered her mouth. Walt was staring straight at Dale now, not at Mitch. It's a joint account, Dale said, voice climbing. I'm a co-owner. This is legal. I had every right. Nobody said it was illegal, Dale. I kept my voice quiet and even the way Carl used to when he meant business. I'm saying it happened. These aren't accusations. These are dates and dollar amounts. Read them yourselves. Earl slid the folder down the table. A cousin opened it. Another leaned in. You told them it was Mitch, I said. You told this whole town your brother was robbing me while your name sat on every withdrawal. Dale looked around the room and found no friendly faces left. You don't understand the situation, Mom. Then explain it, my nephew Curtis said, grim-faced, holding a page. Explain this, Dale. Dale opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Into that silence, Earl said, There's more, quite a bit more. He drew a second set of papers from the folder, older, edges softened with handling. Some of you knew Carl Sullivan. The room quieted further at the name. 7 months before he passed, he came to my office. He was sharp as a blade that day, and he was worried about this exact situation. He instructed me to do 2 things and to keep them sealed until they were needed. Dale had gone gray. Dad, what did Dad do? First, Earl said, on Carl's instruction we drew up a revocation. 60 days before his passing, Dale's status as joint owner on this account was legally terminated. He was removed. The credit union was formally notified. A gasp somewhere near the back. Which means every withdrawal I just read aloud, every single one dated this year, was made by someone with no legal claim whatsoever to that account. That's not a family disagreement. That's theft, plain and clear under the law. Dale's mouth worked silently, staring at the dates he had walked into without ever seeing the floor. Second, Earl continued, Carl placed the proceeds from the hardware store sale into a protected trust, out of reach of either son's signature, and he named a trustee. The person he chose to guard your mother's care should the day ever come. He turned and looked at Mitch. He named Mitch. 40 heads swung toward my younger son. Mitch froze. He had not known any of this. Pure shock landed on his face. He turned to me and I could only shake my head. I had not known either. Then Mitch looked across the room at his brother and spoke, voice soft and steady. Dad knew Dale. He knew all along. For a long moment, Dale just stood there with the champagne flute still in his hand. Then his composure cracked all at once like ice giving way on a spring pond. You don't understand, he said, every bit of polish gone from his voice. I was going to put it back, every dollar. I just needed time. The market turned on us. The house, the investments, we were drowning. You let them think it was your brother, Joan said. She had lowered her hand and her face had gone hard. You called me. You sat in my kitchen and told me Mitch was robbing his own mother. I panicked. Dale turned to the room, pleading. You don't know what it's like to lose everything and still have to smile at the club every Saturday. So you took it from her, Curtis said. From your 70-year-old mother who needs that money to live. Dale spun back toward me. Mom, you can fix this. Tell them you always loved Mitch more. That Dad set this whole thing up to make me look. Stop. My voice came out louder than it had in years. The whole room went still. Your father set nothing up to hurt you. He protected me from you, and he was right to. I won't pretend part of me, the part that had been carrying this hurt for weeks, didn't want to let you drown right there in front of everyone. But Carl's voice was in my head, and that wasn't the woman he married. You're still my son, Dale. I won't put you in a cell if there's another road to walk. But you will pay back every cent, through Earl on paper, and you will never touch my money or your brother's name again. The party was over after that. Everyone knew it. The quartet kept sawing away through the wall, absurd now, like music playing at the wrong funeral. Dale set his glass down, hand shaking. He looked around the room one last time, searching for a single friendly face, and found none. Then he walked out, Vanessa a few steps behind him. The door of the Magnolia room swung shut. Nobody spoke. Then I did something I had needed to do for years. I gripped the table edge, steadied myself on Mitch's shoulder, and stood as tall as my old back would allow so the whole room had to look at me straight on. I want to say something about my son, Mitch. The room held its breath. For 3 years, this man has driven me to every appointment. He fixed my porch. He sat with his father in those last weeks while his brother said he was too busy with work to come. He did it while half this room called him the one who never amounted to anything. I looked around slowly and deliberately. He amounted to everything. You all just weren't looking in the right direction. Mitch was crying. So was I, and I will not pretend otherwise. Joan was crying too. Curtis came over and put a heavy hand on Mitch's shoulder. We owe you an apology, Mitch. Every one of us in this room. One by one, the faces that had turned away from him at the gas station and the lumber yard turned back. Not with pity this time, but with something closer to shame and something close to respect underneath it. Earl moved fast in the days that followed. He filed an emergency motion, and a judge froze whatever remained of any account Dale could still reach. The protected trust was already locked tight. That had been Carl's doing, and it held firm. We sat in Earl's office while he laid out the options. You could press charges, Maggie. The withdrawals after the revocation were unauthorized. A prosecutor would have a real case. I sat with that a long moment, then shook my head. He's still my son. Carl would never forgive me if I put our boy in a cell. I want the money back. I want him off my accounts. That's all. So Earl built a different road, a structured repayment agreement, signed and binding, in exchange for not pursuing charges. Facing prison, Dale signed every page. It was not all there to give back. A good chunk had gone to bad investments and debt that was never coming home. But between the trust Carl had locked away and the assets Dale was forced to liquidate, the second car, Vanessa's jewelry, a lake house they had been underwater on for over a year, he repaid close to $91,000 on a schedule Earl would enforce to the letter. Combined with the trust, it was enough. Enough for the surgery. Enough for the blood pressure medicine. Enough for the part-time aide who comes twice a week now. And enough for me to stay right where I belong, in the house Carl and I built our whole life inside. That facility past the interstate never happened. Dale and Vanessa lost the house anyway. The repayment took what the bank had not already claimed. In a town the size of Millfield, news travels faster than the morning paper. The story of the Magnolia Room was everywhere within a week. The country club Dale had been so afraid of losing face it quietly let his membership lapse. I will not pretend I did not grieve it. He is still my son. I taught him to ride a bike in the driveway of the first house we ever owned. About a month after the party, a letter came, his handwriting shaky on the envelope. Inside, one page. He did not ask for anything. Just said he was sorry and that he would understand if I never wanted to see him again. I read it twice, then set it in Carl's desk drawer with the old receipts and the photograph from the porch. I have not answered it yet. Some wounds a woman has to sit with a while before she knows what to say. But I keep it. That counts for something. Then one gray Sunday there was a knock and Vanessa stood on the porch. No designer bag, no bright smile, just a tired woman with red eyes holding her purse in both hands. "I left him, Maggie," she said before I could speak. "After it all came out, I should have stopped him a long time ago and I didn't. I came to say I'm sorry to you and to Mitch. I knew." And I helped him hide it. I looked at her a long moment, then stepped back and held the door open. "Coffee's on. Mitch is out back fixing the fence. You can say it to him yourself." The hardest part was never Dale. It was everyone else. The same relatives who had looked through Mitch at the gas station now could not do enough for him. Joan started calling every few days. Cousins who had not spoken to either of my boys in years sent cards. Walt stopped me outside the hardware store I used to run, gripped my hand, and said how sorry he was, how he should have known better than to believe the easy story. There was a proud, stubborn part of me that wanted to stay cold to all of them. They had believed Dale over my Mitch without blinking. But cold does not warm an old woman's house, and it is not who Carl raised me to be. So when Joan came with a casserole and a long, teary apology, I let her say her piece. I made her coffee. Then I told her the truth, gentle but plain. "I'm glad you see it different now, Joan. I am. But I wish you'd asked me first, or asked Mitch, before you decided he was a thief." She started to defend herself, then stopped. "You're right, Maggie, I'm ashamed of myself. I know you are, we all are, but this family's done treating Mitch like the one to watch. He earned better than that from every one of us." That was the line I drew with each of them, not in anger, just set firm and polite in the ground. Some understood. Curtis became a real friend and comes by Sundays now to watch the game. Others drifted off, uncomfortable around an old woman who no longer needed their good opinion. I can live with that just fine. And Mitch holds his head a little higher around this town now. It was a long time coming. One evening weeks later, Mitch and I sat on the back porch in that soft hour when the light goes gold and everything feels almost forgivable. "Mom," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, son. Did you ever suspect Dale before the bank? Did Dad ever say anything to you about it?" I sat quiet a while watching the yard go dim. "No," I admitted. "Your father carried it alone, the whole weight of it. I've wondered why he never told me straight out. I think I understand it now. He didn't want to make me choose to look at one son and wonder about him every day after. So he handled it the quiet way, locked the henhouse and never made me watch the fox circling. He made me the trustee," Mitch said softly, "before he passed. He never told me either. Of course he did it that way. Who else would he trust with my care, Mitch? Not Dale. Dale was the loud one. You were the one who showed up every single day he had left." My voice caught. "Your father knew exactly which of you boys was which. He always did. I'm just sorry it took me 67 years and an empty bank account to finally say it out loud." Mitch did not answer. He just leaned his head against my shoulder the way he used to when he was small and scared of thunder. We sat there a long time while the light drained slow out of the sky. The trust did one thing I had not expected. Earl insisted on a fair monthly allowance for Mitch, paid for the work of caring for me. "Caregivers get paid, Maggie. There's no shame in that. Carl wanted it written in plain, so I wrote it in plain." For the first time in 3 years, Mitch had a little breathing room of his own, and he did something he had not let himself dream about in a long while. There is an old garage 2 streets off Main that used to be a tire shop, sitting empty since before Carl passed. Mitch had driven past it most of his life. That summer he leased it and started fixing small engines and lawn equipment on weekends, the kind of work he had always been good at but never had room to make his own. Nothing fancy. A couple of bays, A hand-painted sign, but it was his. The first thing in his whole life that belonged to nobody but him. I go down most mornings. He sets me up on a folding chair just inside the bay door with my coffee black, the way Carl never could talk me out of, and I watch Main Street wake up while he works. Curtis comes by Saturdays to drop off his old mower. Some mornings my chest aches a little, and I take my pills with the coffee and think about how close I came to that facility 40 minutes past the interstate. Then I look at my son, grease on his forearms, humming some country song his father used to play in the kitchen, and I let the ache go. Even Vanessa stops by sometimes on her way to her new job at the title company. Even Joan, who always overstays just a little as if she is still working off the apology. Dale moved out west that fall, took a sales job 2 states over somewhere nobody knew the story of the Magnolia Room. He keeps up the repayment mostly. Earl chases him when he does not, and that is enough. The money comes in slow and steady into the trust. He sends a card now and then, my birthday, Christmas, short notes in that same shaky hand. I read them. I keep them in Carl's drawer with the rest. We do not talk much. The wound is still there, just quieter now the way old wounds get when you have collected a few too many. People ask me sometimes, the ones who know the whole story, whether I ever wanted real revenge, whether watching my son fall apart in that room felt good. The honest answer is no, not the way most people mean it. Earl told me the criminal case would have been solid. I could have sent Dale away, taken everything, made sure the whole world knew exactly what he had done. There were nights early on when the angry part of me wanted exactly that, but somewhere along the road I figured something out. If I had done it out of spite, if I had let myself become cruel just to feel the satisfaction, I would have turned into a little bit of what he was, and I would have lost the one thing this whole mess never managed to take from me, the woman Carl married. I did not win because I was louder or meaner or more clever than my own son. An old woman past 60 is none of those things anymore. Not really. I won because the truth sat square on my side, because my husband had been smarter than the rest of us put together, and because I had a son who never once stopped showing up. Here is what I would tell another mother if she were sitting across the folding table from me in that garage right now. Do not wait. Do not wait to tell your good child that you see them, that you know exactly what they are worth. I spent years letting this family call Mitch the one who never amounted to much, and I let the silence stand because speaking up felt like stirring a pot that did not need stirring. That silence cost him more than any amount of money ever could. Love, real love, is not letting your family walk right over you and calling it loyalty. You can love your child and still refuse to let him rob you blind. You can forgive a man and still lock the door behind him on your way out. It took me 67 years to learn that lesson. I hope it does not take you anywhere near as long. This morning, the light came through the garage bay door the same way it came through my kitchen window that Thursday in October, gold and slow and ordinary. The kind of light a woman does not notice until everything around her has already changed. Mitch was under a customer's mower swearing softly at a stripped bolt the way his father used to swear at a stuck oven door. I sat in my folding chair, both hands wrapped around my coffee, watching Main Street wake up one storefront at a time. He slid out, wiped his hands on a rag, and sat down across from me on an overturned bucket. "You good, Mom?" "I'm good, son." I make sure to say his name now. I say it a lot. I spent too many years letting other people say it like it was something to apologize for. He nodded toward the street. "Curtis is coming by around 9 for his mower blade. I'll make a fresh pot." A long time ago, a loan officer looked up at me across a desk and told me to sit down like the floor was about to drop out from under my whole life. And it did. Everything I thought I understood about my family came apart in that little side office with the round table. I am glad I sat down when she told me to. I truly am. Because when I finally stood back up, past the lies, past the whispers, past my own stubborn pride, I knew for the first time in 67 years exactly which of my sons had been my home all along. And I will never let him forget that I know.